Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal the International. I'm called Marinzi at Top Stories. Over a month after the shooting in the Presbyterian Church in Balinyonga in the Northwest region leading to the suspension of service, the first come together for Christians took place on a Sunday in an annexed building while preparations continue for a subsequent cleansing of the House of God. And the Minister of Economic Planning and Regional Development and the World Bank have signed funding agreements worth over 227 billion francs CFA these to finance 3 projects in the areas of agriculture, climate change and others. And today, October 12, 2021 is observed as World Mental Health Day. The World Health Organization on this day challenged the government of Cameroon to pay attention on mental health, and there is no health without mental health. Those were major stories. Details right ahead. Over a month after the shooting in the Presbyterian Church in Balinyonga Northwest, a region of Cameroon leading to the suspension of its activities, the first come together for Christians took place on Sunday in an annexed building for the while preparations continue for subsequent cleansing of the House of God to mark the resumption of routine activities in the entire Bali subdivision, as we hear in the following story. Christians of the Presbyterian Church, Townfolk in Bali, Mezam Division of the Northwest region, have come together for the first time after more than a month due to troubles sparked by the gun attack that claims the life of a Christian and injured others, including the parish pastor. Hundreds of Bali-based followers of Christ jointly worshipped together on Sunday in a nearby building, pending a cleansing service of more than 100-year-old worship house stained by blood in the August deadly shooting.
And on Tuesday for 3 o'clock, inside here, all president of group and their secretary and the session with the whole meeting to plan how we will receive guests.
It has disturbed so many people, but by the grace of God, by everything, the Christians were able to worship in this congregation today. I'm fine with those who are around me, showing a lot of joy for praising God on where the gospel started.
The resumption of service has rekindled hope for the continuation of the liturgy on the very soil where the only scripture landed for the first time in the grass field.
I could see the joy in church, the explosion in worship, shows that people really wanted to come together to worship God. And so I'm so happy, and I just pray that this spirit will continue. Even those who could not make it today, since there will be service next week, I'm convinced that all of them will be in church.
Service had been halted at PC Townfolk in Bali, following arguments and counter-arguments over the identity of the real attackers on the church during full service. The Minister of Economic Planning and Regional Development and the World Bank have signed funding agreements worth 227 billion francs CFA. These to finance 3 new projects in the areas of agriculture, climate change, automation of young girls and education, and professional training. The directors of operations at the World Bank signed on behalf of the World Bank Group, while the Minister of Economy, Alamin Usman May, signed on behalf of the government of Cameroon. As we hear the following story with Beatrice Ngamo.
The first grant, worth $200 million, that is about 111 billion CFA franc, is to support agriculture in the Benue Valley North region to the benefit of a fragile region rife with conflicts, land tension, and natural disasters, though rich with opportunities.
And by improving, of course, irrigation infrastructure, by bringing agriculture services, so we could expect agriculture production in that region to maybe multiplied 20-fold, which is extremely important.
Funding number 2 is for the empowerment of young girls and women around the Sahel region, worth $75 million, placed by the World Bank around 4 E's. This by ensuring
women are more educated, could stay longer in school, and get a better training, and then go ahead and contribute as they do already today, but could do much more.
The last project signed today, worth $125 million, concerns that supporting education and professional training, the hope and future for Cameroonian youths.
And that will support, of course, access to better quality secondary education and technical education, and of course, vocational training.
In total, the 3 programs signed today amount to about $400 million, approximately 227 billion CFA franc. Sign of brighter days ahead as far as Cameroon World Bank operation is concerned.
One of them is to continue to support our strategy to respond to COVID-19, to increase and facilitate access to vaccination against COVID-19.
The agreements were signed in the presence of beneficiary ministers.
With the third wave of the COVID-19 found in almost every community in Cameroon today, there is a pressure on state workers to get vaccinated before accessing public structures in Cameroon. What are the consequences of these compulsory actions imposed by government? More in the following story with our intern with our student journalist Usmul Uzumi. His story.
The noise and divergent opinions on the COVID-19 vaccine kept increasing in Cameroon. While introducing the vaccine to Cameroonians some moment back, the government made it very clear that it was important for all to get vaccinated, but underlines that vaccination was not mandatory. But today, the story seems different. Some state authorities have begun putting workers under strict situation of putting them to go for the vaccine before having access to your job site. Sociologists advance some health consequences of this obligation process.
When somebody are obliged to get their vaccine, perhaps if they have another health problem and the vaccine come at the same time, and those problems with interaction with vaccine arrive to a very situation which deteriorate their health.
The situation, he adds, may just push Cameroonians to embarking on some other means.
In this kind of society, men are very creative. It is possible the day will come that you see some Cameroonian with vaccine card without vaccination.
Legal Minds has retaliated that it is up to the various individuals to make decisions towards the vaccination, and that such decision makers should be able to assume the legal, civic and administrative responsibilities when and aftermath effects come to play.
The World Health Organization, WHO, has challenged the government of Cameroon to pay keen attention on mental health, as there is no health without a mental health. Today, this as Cameroon joins the rest of the world today to observe World Mental Health Day. The illness, which many have often attributed to witchcraft, can be properly treated in hospitals in Cameroon. The details with Hyson Cha.
5 years of mental illness. This lady is back to her normal senses, thanks to submitting her situation to medical treatment. The 2021 edition of World Mental Health Day, commemorated under the theme Mental Health and Respect of Human Rights, was an occasion for medical personnel to call on families and communities to change their approach and perceptions towards mental health patients.
On this day, it's very important for the community, the family, to understand that a patient who have a mental diseases can be cured. It's important to come to the hospital for the treatment. It's not a matter of witchcraft, of spiritual attack.
A moment for the World Health Organization to send a wake-up call to the government of Cameroon to divert special attention to this health department.
Calling to the government of Cameroon to really invest more in mental health, and with the understanding that there is no health without mental health.
And to reduce the number of Cameroonians falling prey to this phenomenon, the state of Cameroon must address the varied road causes.
And those are access to income, access to employment, access to habitation or housing, access to social support, developing social support network, and finally legal support where necessary.
In a bid to better the situation of mental health patients, here at the Jamo Hospital, the Yaoundé City Mayor, Luc Messi Atangana, comes into play with the provision of these lodging facilities. It should be recalled that the cost of consultation for a mental health patient is just 600 francs CFA.
And we take you to the Douala 5 municipality and Cameroon's economic city, precisely at Olendi, where the population are clamoring for better road infrastructure. Amongst other basic needs is a lack of potable water and energy. The details with Saleh Sherifa.
This is Lendi, a locality found in the 5th municipality of the economic capital of Cameroon. An upscale area with beautiful buildings, yet very landlocked as far as good infrastructure is concerned. The population face a lot of challenges with bad roads, poor energy supply and no supply of water. We generally have difficulties when goods have to enter. Suddenly, suppliers increase supply costs due to the state of the road. The national company in charge of water does not reach here, so everyone is struggling because the constructions we go to provide in houses are generally the boreholes. This Sunday, 10th October, a truck tumbled on this area and blocked passage due to the condition of the road as the team of Canal got from the habitat. I was entering Lendi. I discovered there was no road because a truck had tumbled on that hill over there, so there was no passage. My car has spent the night here since last night, and we have no emergency exit. So if the main road is blocked, everybody will be reluctant. The mayor of this district says it but normal for conditions of the road to be that way. Lendi's lane is not bad, but we have truck drivers who don't come on board and watch a lane before loading. The people of Lendi have no choice but to live in the area, for they have invested their life fortune there, as the problem they face is how to get in and out of the main city of Douala, as it is situated 13 kilometers approximately from the main town.
Saleh Sherifa reporting there. And we now take you to Banja in the west region of Cameroon, where unrelative Cameroon's inhabitants have taken to the streets to protest against a growing insecurity that has given many sleepless nights. The angry protesters frowned at administrative officers, some allegedly for setting free bandits who they identified as being at the center of all robbery attacks in their neighborhoods, with the authorities eventually doing nothing to address the problem. It took hours for the SDO for Open Camp Luke on Dongo to calm down flary tempers. The SDO promised to look to launch a manhunt which will lead to the arrest of all criminals in Banja and their subsequent detention at the Bafang prison. Let's get a reaction of the divisional officer of Banja, Regina Injo Tembo.
I came in the morning on market day, Sunday, 2nd October 2021. I was unable to meet the machine that I work with.
Look for them on me.
So please, they catch the thief man, and we don't know exactly what happened that day. So all this population here is because they want us, they want peace. They want to live in peace.
Ever-growing a population in Cameroon's economic city, Douala, and those provoking huge demand in terms of transportation, particularly in the motorbike sector, where thousands of youths have shown interest in giving an urgent need for them to identify themselves. These kids, with an urgent need for them to identify themselves, are putting on identification kits. These kits consist of identification jackets, helmets, and a driver license with an objective of identifying them per a municipality. Saleh Sharifa completes our story.
The economic capital of Cameroon is a region congested with a good number of inhabitants, where motor taxi men are highly needed to fasten movement of this population. For better transportation and secured circulation of these motor taxi men, the need of putting on protection kits is highly needed. I have my helmet. I was a victim of an accident a year ago, so without the helmet, I would have been a dead person by now. These transporters have associations in each district of the region and are identified with their identification jackets. The fault comes back to many of us, the responsible, where one pays a motorbike, he dismantles everything. Then the helmet, he doesn't care, whereas at the point of sale, there was everything. But I think it is changing. Frank Vondo, a member of the City Council of Douala, tells us some of the measures put in place by the city mayor, where before the end of October, latest 10 November, as he says, the City Council will provide 5,000 identification jackets for motor taxi men.
It
is necessary to start with the identification and the obtaining of driving license, which goes with the wearing of the identification jacket. Then the second step will consist in requiring the wearing of safety helmets. As he says, these acts will ease road safety agents to distinguish motor taxi men in order and those who are not, and they will be obliged to put on a safety helmet.
And that report brings us to the end of this edition of Newscast in the English language on Canal International. But don't go away, we'll have news in the French language coming up at exactly 7:50. This Nova Senkan with Aimé Kati Mokori. But coming up next is the brief with Lil Pijou. As for me, I'll be back same time tomorrow for another edition. Good night.